Is trying to crack down on public corruption by creating a network of crime-fighting assistants across New York. Yesterday, the AG traveled to Buffalo to open an office dedicated to rooting out white-collar crime at the local level. Today, Schneiderman announced a total of 14 employees will actually be stationed all across the state, and he hopes that taxpayers will come forward with their concerns. Joining me now to explain how all of this will work is Nancy Hoppock. She is the Executive Deputy Attorney General for Criminal Justice. Nancy, thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So the idea here is that it will be easier for taxpayers, less daunting, and easier to find, basically. If you want to give a little bit of a tip, which is a scary thing, maybe, that you can go local instead of calling some faceless person in New York City or Albany. Is that right?
Exactly. Essentially a local beat cop.
And how will that work? I mean, this person is going to be in some sort of street level office and you'll just walk in off the street? I mean, that seems like a little dangerous.
Well, you know, what we're really expanding upon is this. You know, the state of New York has had a new Attorney General for almost exactly 6 months.
Right.
And what's important to him and the promises that he's made, the picture is starting to emerge, right? The environment matters very much to him, and protecting consumers matters very much to him. And this is surely one of his highest priorities, is restoring faith in government. And what we're trying to develop is something we've already seen work. The Public Integrity Bureau already has received, in our 5 short months, almost 6, very valuable leads from citizens. You know, citizens that just have their eyes and ears open, that are engaged in watching their own government, whistleblowers from within government organizations. And so we want to encourage that, and we want to give them a name and a face of a local person, a local beat cop. And these are experienced lawyers. They're experienced in fighting fraud. Most of them are former ADAs. So it's a name and a face that they can go and visit. And we have other ways of receiving information online, but we wanted to give them essentially that, a local beat cop.
Do you think actually with the advent of the internet, it's easier for people to try and make those connections? I mean, we've seen a lot of, if you will, like slush fund issues. That's mostly in New York City. But with member items, particularly at the legislative level, people saying, wait, hold on, this doesn't match up. And this person is sending money to a nonprofit that his mom heads. I mean, that stuff was hard to make those connections, but now people can get right online and find that information.
Absolutely, and law enforcement can too, and we do watch, and we are watching. But having sort of the people who are living in their communities tuned in and sharing that information with us is invaluable.
Are you guys looking for the kind of corruption that is occurring in towns and cities, and not just in state legislative offices?
That's exactly the idea behind this. So to try to restore faith, focus our attention not just in Albany, but everywhere, at the local level, at the city level, at the county level, and that's a big part of this plan.
Now, I know I'm going to ask you this question because I suspect you're not going to tell me, unfortunately, but you said that you are getting calls, and have these calls actually generated, and these tips generated investigations?
You were right.
I can't tell you. Tell me.
But all I can tell you is, you know, we get a broad range of complaints, and I can't say every one of them turns into a lead that is a viable investigation, but many of them have, and it's very valuable information.
So how did the idea for this come about? In other words, that the Attorney General was concerned about potential retribution, because I know that some of this, you're talking about very powerful people. Even a local mayor is powerful, and if you happen to live down the block from him and you see him doing something untoward, you might not necessarily want to be known as the person who dropped the dime. And
you don't have to be. So, you know, to come in and make a complaint and share information, it is perfectly possible for us to develop an investigation on a lead where we never reveal our source. So, as that being a concern, I don't think that should dissuade people. But the question you asked me initially is, how did we come up with this idea?
Right.
I can't take credit for it. It's my boss, the Attorney General, came up with it, and it's part of, actually, he's initiated a few things to try to really focus our efforts and attention on improving citizens' faith in government. This is one of it, sort of giving them a local person to go to turn to. Some other initiatives that we've taken is created the Taxpayer Protection Bureau, which is a separate bureau.
Right.
These folks coordinate with our Public Integrity Bureau. The Taxpayer Protection Bureau is a separate unit. They work together often, but not always. And the Taxpayer Protection Bureau is really focused on financial fraud against the state. So, for example, if you have a county sports center that has a manager and he has a contract with a local equipment provider to sell the center basketballs, and they work out a little deal where on paper they're billing the state or the county or the city for 100 basketballs, but really only delivering 75, and they're splitting the rest.
Are you saying that this actually is happening? Are you giving us a little bit of it?
No. This is truly like a law school example. Okay. This is a law school example. That would be a case where these two bureaus would work together because it's a false claim. When they submit that bill to the county to get paid for 100 basketballs, it's a false claim, and we can go after them for 3 times the false billing.
All right, so Nancy,
if we can prove, yes.
I got to ask you, 14 offices is a lot of offices.
Yes.
With a person in each office, obviously, and these people were already detailed in the AG's office, so it's not hiring 14 people and creating a whole bunch of expenses, et cetera. But are these people, is there really enough public corruption for these people to have something to do?
Well, all I can say is we had a robust pipeline of complaints of this nature.
Wow.
And in the short time that we've had sort of designated these officers, it seems like the pipeline is even more robust, and we're going to track it down and keep digging where we should keep digging. So I guess the answer to your question is yes, perhaps.
Do you believe that is because people are just more attuned to this idea of public corruption because we've seen so much public corruption and so much coverage of public corruption, or maybe just people are more corrupt than they used to be?
I don't know. I don't know if they're more corrupt than they used to be. I think this is about money. I mean, the state has a lot of money. There are a lot of contracts, and whenever that happens, there's the possibility for graft and greed and promoting, yourself rather than what you took an oath in office to do, and that is to work for the people. And that's another thing that we've done is this partnership with the Comptroller's office is, that is where all the state money flows through. So when government officials these days talk about these tough budgetary times and trying to do more with less, I've already seen it personally. Our partnership with the Comptroller has been tremendous because it seems like the old model, they'd start to detect fraud in a contract and do an audit and perhaps make the call to us a little bit later. But when appropriate, they're making the call to us a little bit earlier, or we're calling them, maybe even off of one of these citizen letters. We're calling them and sort of combining forces, and I'm seeing in just a few short months that is a real way to do more with less, because we're both losing manpower in our offices. So if we combine, it's been really helpful.
Well, we are going to keep an eye on this for that pipeline of fraud that hopefully we are going to hear more about soon, actually. I want to thank you very much, Nancy Hoppock, for coming in because it's pretty fascinating. Thanks very much.
Thanks for having me.